Hi everyone, Archana and I welcome you to this episode of Consciously Caring for Aging Parents. We bring our combined wisdom and life experiences to each of these conversations. May these conversations inspire, nurture, and support you in your own journey while you care for your aging parents. We truly hope that you find these conversations helpful. So let's dive into the very first episode.
So, hi Archana.
Hi, Smriti.
It's really exciting to be here doing this with you. It means such a lot. How do you
Thank
feel
you.
about this?
Thank you. This is a great opportunity for me to, share my experiences and my thoughts on the topic. It's a very sensitive topic, but yet so important, I feel. So thanks so much for creating this opportunity for me.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you on the fact that it's so sensitive. And, a lot of it is hard to talk and hard to hear as well, right? So, I think the listeners will go through the same feelings along with us as we talk about these topics. So, our topic for today, which we thought we'll talk about, is role reversal and twin beggar syndrome, right?
Yes.
I think I feel these two topics are so intertwined, and I guess we'll get to know about it through our conversation. But what does this role reversal mean to you? When did you actually see that role reversal in your relationship with your parents?
So overall, the parents are taking care of the child from the beginning. But when it comes to role reversal, what happens is because of some circumstances, maybe the parent's illness, or it could be because of aging or any other circumstances in life, the child has to take over the parent's responsibility of taking care of the parents now. This is ideally what happens in old age or during illness of the parents. The child has to now take over the responsibility of the parents. So, it's such a shift in the family dynamics that, and it's very complex because we are not used to it. We cannot think of a family in that way. But the child now begins to start caring for the parents. The child becomes the caregiver. And this is ideally the role reversal that happens.
Mhm. That's beautiful. I think you explained it really well. And you're right, it happens at different times for different people. And I feel this is my, thinking that looking at this role reversal is so important for us when we are on this caregiving end of the paradigm, right? That whole, like, whatever, whenever you reached it, whether at 40, at 50 or 60, or whenever you reach it, because parents need care at different points, like it's not the same. And when it becomes like they need your care and you are at a different age, that many years you've looked at your parent as one particular role, that parent means the caregiver. This is a kind of a thing that's synced in, right? And to suddenly shift this, why is it important we see this when we are caring for our parents?
When the child is young, it was the parent who used to bathe the child and take care of the child's hygiene and, dress the child. But when the parent gets to a state where they cannot do it on their own, the child has to start doing this for the parent, maybe helping the parent with bathing and dressing up and, the personal hygiene. This may be a little uncomfortable for both of them, but ideally, this is what happens with role reversal.
Mhm.
Or maybe imagine, when the child is young and the parent in the night comes and, says good night to the child and covers the child with a blanket. But, life changes over time. And, you see such a reversal.
Yes.
So just to tell you an example, when my mother was sick, um, she used to tell me, "Are you not going to feed me today?" And that would really, touch my heart and say, "Oh, my mother is expecting me to do this. So I have to get the food in a bowl and feed her now."
Yeah.
So this is the role reversal.
Yeah.
We do not consciously become aware that, yes, we are doing this. We just take it up as a responsibility and carry it out. But ideally, what we are doing is role reversal.
I think that's so true. I can so resonate with what you're sharing because recently my dad went through a surgery, and I know what you're talking about. And I think the role reversal happens like in a natural way in most cases, but in some cases, it's important for us to see this role reversal that has happened, because if not, there can be resistance to this reversal. There can, from the both sides, right, from the parent side and from the child side, because you can imagine the one factor that is very, very important for a human being, Archana, is autonomy. And if that is taken away from a person, can you imagine how that feels for that person? Okay. And here we as children have identified with a certain role where our parent does that. And this, it can bring up a lot of pain in us when we see that our parent is not doing what they did for the past 60, 70, 80 years. So there's a lot of underlying pain which comes, and pain is an inevitable part of life. But when resistance to that pain happens, that is when suffering happens. Right. So our conversation here, Archana, is that we want this whole phase of our life with our parents to be harmonious and connected. So that's why we are having this conversation, right? So I feel identifying this role reversal somehow opens up that space where we are with our pain, with what's coming up, our parents are, and we are doing what is needed in this moment.
I agree on that, Smriti. I completely agree with you. And the child, along with taking care of the parent, also has to take care of their own lives as well. They have their own responsibilities too. So, it has to be balanced. There has to be a balance between taking care of the parent and taking care of one's own needs, because, because you have the responsibility of taking care of the parent, you cannot uh, sacrifice on your own life.
Yes.
You need to do that as well. So this is what I think, to strike a balance between both will be highly important.
I think we are going to be talking about self-care as another topic. So we will cover that. And that's a very important point, because you cannot help another if you've not helped yourself. So that is very, very true. But I think it's for us to recognize this role reversal is happening. That's one. Second is that it is inevitable and a natural process for every human being on the face of this earth, because it's hard. I know there are so many situations where you feel like, oh, this will never come to an end, and things change, right? Like, for example, children finishing school or whatever. So for our parents too, the phases are changing, the processes are changing, and suddenly they are in this, the receiving end of the care, and they don't know how to respond to this when there is that autonomy need, right? So I feel understanding this role reversal will also help us reparent ourselves and our parents, don't you think? Like in a way that I think it's so similar to raising children, when we are taking care of our aging parents, you're setting the boundary, you're giving them choices, you're doing so many things which you would do to children. So when we understand this role reversal is happening, when we accept it, when we acknowledge it as a regular part of life, like normalize it, then this whole process of how will I go about this? Like for us, for the caregiver, that is a child, the adult child, and for the parents is okay, how can I cooperate?
And also, in the process, sometimes there can be feelings of guilt and feelings of resentment that can arise.
Yes.
It's difficult for the child to see the parent in a vulnerable state and may feel overwhelmed by the responsibility of care.
I completely agree. And that's why we are doing this podcast, because the overwhelm, the anxiety, the fear, it does not help us show up in loving ways. It helps us to show up in anxious ways. We are so scared for our parents, for ourselves, even though everything else is 100% true, because we have a juggle between our own lives and the caregiving role that's come. But however, love is a crucial word you use there, Archana. I feel the definition, what does love mean to me, is so important when it comes to any relationship, and even more so for the parent child relationship, even though this is a reversal role. Because everybody, whatever age you are, you want to be loved. And so do our aging parents. They don't want the caregiving to take over the loving. So, we are talking here about how we can make caregiving and loving go hand in hand simultaneously with the underlying foundation of self love and the discovery of the self, that is for ourselves. Because without that, how can we show up in a way that will connect us to our parents, right? They are already feeling sad or depressed about the fact that their life has changed, their physical capabilities are changing. There's also the feelings that arise within the adult child, that is the feelings that you mentioned, that is guilt, resentment. These are all feelings. I think the understanding of this feeling rising and sitting with it with a pause and seeing what understanding comes from within will help us through this process. And for that, you and I have to take that powerful pause. We have to stop, we have to take few breaths, breathe, and connect to who we are. And I think this will segue very beautifully to our part of this topic, which is the twin beggar syndrome. I think what happens is when that pause is not taken by us and for the aging parent. I think the aging parent needs to connect to themselves too. But when we don't take this pause, we are stuck in our stories each. And our mental and emotional patterns from the past start coming up more so in this new roles that we are playing, right? They don't go unless we work on them. And so the twin beggar syndrome is where I am saying, see me, see me, see me, because I was the child which needed the seeing, the hearing, and the validation, which may have not been what we got, and we are still unsatisfied. And the parent has that coming from their own childhood, which is still see me and give me and hear me, understand me, love me. And we are both seeking from each other, which we each don't have until we do the work on ourselves. So I feel when you're caring for aging parents, the work of the inner work of looking into what patterns am I playing? What are these projections that are happening? Why this resentment? What am I resisting in something that is inevitable?
I can just, add this thing when it comes to the twin beggar syndrome. So a couple of years ago, one day, I just told my mother. At that point of time, I was her caregiver. There was a role reversal as it is, but yet I knew, looking at my mother, she was kind of um, wanting to still show me that she is still needed. And I was doing my best in taking care of her, but I was also suffering with severe back pain at that point of time. And my mother was just kind of, not sure about how far she was contributing to the family, and she had her own doubts. But then I just feel so good when I still remember this. I told her on that particular morning, I need you so much because I'm going through a bad phase. My back hurts so much and I need you. So that gave her so much of that encouragement and the feeling that she still needed. I knew she couldn't do much for me, but still, I gave her that feeling that she is still needed. And the next 10 minutes, she was on the phone with somebody telling that, uh, yeah, my daughter is having very bad back pain, but she needs me, and at this time, I need her as well because of my health reasons. So I didn't really know the term, the twin beggar syndrome, but we were ideally doing that.
So true. And I like how you brought in the need factor, which I did not mention. And that's so true for the aging parent, that again, that's a seeking, because I think as parents to young children, we have done so much for them, like taking care of them, all that you described, that we almost feel that we will be needed only if we care for someone. If I don't take care, then I will not be needed. It means I'm becoming irrelevant. And that is a fearful thing for a parent. It's a beautiful point you brought up. And I think these insecurities that we have that turn up when we are caring for aging parents, where I say, you see me, and they say, no, you see me. I feel when we are aware and conscious, we see it coming up. It's not about it should not, because when we say it should not, then guilt comes up. Oh, how could I speak to my mom like that? How could I do this to my dad? That's another guilt that we'll be talking about more in future episodes. But I think seeing clearly what's rising and knowing it's okay for it to come up, and let me show up in the most conscious way. I don't think there's no right, wrong, good, bad in this whole discussion, right? It is the predicament that humans go through. And we all are going to be on the other end sometime. It's not that we stay on one end. That's very truly seen in life, right? How much you need the other may vary, but at the end, you are reversing roles. At the end, the twin beggar syndrome, though it's a big word, I mean, it's just a label, but like you rightly said, it's happening moment by moment with every human being, but more so with relationships that we have shared a very long past with. So a lot of things come up, a lot of things are still to be healed within us, lot of things to be healed within our parent who is aging, and now the aging factor is added to the pain of the unhealed wounds. So we have to look at all this, and that's why we are here having this conversation. So I wanted to just read a quote, Archana, but this is by Ram Das, one of the spiritual teachers who did a lot of senior care in his living years. He's not alive now, but he worked a lot with the seniors. And I've little bit modified his quote by just he's talking about a client while I'm talking about a parent. So little modified it. It says, if we can give up attachment to our roles as the giver of help, then maybe our parents can give up attachment to their roles as the receiver of help, and we can meet as fellow souls on this incredible journey. We can fulfill the duties of our roles without being trapped by our over identification with them.
Beautiful.
What does that bring up for you? What does it feel for you?
So, Smriti, that's very beautifully said. But at the same time, from my experience, what I feel is, the parent has served as a caregiver to the child all along for several decades. But now, suddenly, for them to kind of, step back and let the child do the caregiver's task, the duty of being a caregiver. So it's not easy for the parent to kind of let go. It's very difficult.
It's very difficult for the parent to let go. It's very difficult for the child to embrace. There's no doubt about it. But what I like about conscious living is trying to get into that space of acceptance of what is. So I think that there's a choice how we meet the situation, right, Archana? That no doubt it is challenging. That's not even something we're questioning. But there are two choices to show up consciously or unconsciously. And it's up to us what we want to do. And both are perfectly fine. There's nothing right and wrong about this. But if we choose to make the best use of these senior years with our parents, then we have to see how we are getting disconnected from ourselves through this process. Why? Because we're not self-care, giving self-care to ourselves. Second, we're getting disconnected with our siblings. Why? Because there is a disagreement, an argument, and resistance to things that are happening my way, your way, so many things. And basically a disconnection with joy from your own being and from being with your caring adult. So if we want to work on these, then consciously seeing where is my pattern coming up. And we don't have to subject ourselves to this 24/7, 365 days. That's where self-care comes into the picture. So how can we balance this and balance self-care and caring for our aging parents to the extent that you are called to do? We are not here to tell anyone, you have to do this, you have to do this much, so many hours, so much quantity. Literally, it's up to us. But for me to figure out what works for me, I have to go inward. I have to give myself that pause and ask, what kind of relationship do I want with my senior parent? What is the care I want to give them? How can I stay for myself while I do this? Knowing very well that the shared past is going to bring up certain emotional turbulence. It's not a plane without emotional turbulence or physical situations. But like Eckhart Tolle says, Archana, the situation is not giving us as much suffering as the interpretation of the situations. So that is where I feel we can work on ourselves to what am I interpreting? And this interpretation is being colored by our beliefs, our conditioning, our past, the stories we have not left yet. So by seeing, and then so for the parent. It's not like there is no blame game. It is what it is. How can I show up most consciously?
Absolutely the truth, Smriti. But sadly, nobody goes to that level to, realize it from that point and, do the caregiving.
It comes to consciousness and the way to show up for a situation, Archana, the only place we can and we have control is within us. We have no control on another, whether it is your siblings, your parents, the staff that works with your parents. Literally, that's all their personal journeys. My journey is how do I show up for my elderly parents? How can I have the best relationship from my end? So when that is not reciprocated, again, there's a pain. Again, we look into this pain. What is it that's within me that's getting hurt? It is that little girl and the little boy that wants to be seen by the parent. And this parent is not capable of doing it in this moment. Not because they don't want to, but they just can't in this moment from the consciousness they're in. So but then that girl or boy, little boy is activated. What are the soothing self-care that I have to tell this little girl, I'm here for you no matter what. Come, let's do this together. That's the care I'm talking about, Archana. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not asking anybody to do it any other way than they are doing it right now, unless they want to. But I definitely see a big shift in my consciousness by looking at it from this perspective and taking care of my own inner little girl.
Very true, very true. I completely agree with what you're saying. And that's why maybe this podcast will help many who are struggling with, you know, being the caregivers for their parents and are also getting sucked by the emotion and the circumstances, the situations around them. They're constantly battling with that rather than making peace within themselves.
Mhm.
So this is highly important as a realization, uh, and to execute the caregiving responsibility to the fullest uh, degree of satisfaction. So whatever you said, I completely agree on, and but they should also be aware of how to make peace within themselves.
Mhm.
What is that they need to do to get this kind of peace so that there's no internal conflicts that help the aging parent as well as help themselves in the process?
Absolutely. I think the raging war inside is something we don't really see, and we wonder why the war outside is getting so tough with sometimes. I really see what you're saying, and I'm glad we're even talking about these things from a place of acceptance, love, and understanding. I want our listeners to know that you and I are not exempt from these feelings of resentment, guilt, or anger, or whatever that they are feeling. We feel it too. We are just working on seeing the and connecting with that which we truly are, so that we can connect with that in our aging parents as well. So I think this was a great beginning for this very, very crucial conversation. Archana, thank you for being here and prepared to talk about something so vulnerable. And we will see you all next week again with another topic, and let's see what comes up. Thank you and bye bye.
We hope you found this conversation helpful. If this episode touched and moved you, please feel free to share it with anyone that you think would benefit from it. So until we meet again, stay real and kind. Thank you for listening. Bye bye.